Good evening. Welcome to Art Talk. I'm Laura Womack, and Jen McHugh is our technical director.
Hi, everyone.
Tonight, I'm pleased to welcome my friend and probably your friend, Jean Underwood. Jean is well known in our community as a thoughtful person who has supported artists and arts institutions with insight and action, and for that, we're grateful. For his artwork, just as thoughtful and insightful as he is, we're delighted. Jean elevates the commonplace items of modern life onto the revered stage of the still life painting. He paints things that are so quotidian we barely notice them. Bubble wrap, post-it notes, paper coffee cups, even Ziploc bags. The paintings direct the viewer's attention to the throwaway items around them. Maybe we can find beauty there, or perhaps we may acknowledge our environmental anxiety. Jean is a medieval scholar who evolved into an advertising creative director. After private art training, this Bucks County native has dedicated himself to updating the still life tradition to reflect our 21st century. He's shown his paintings in dozens of exhibitions in the past 3 years and was awarded Excellence in Still Life at the 2022 Stover Mill Gallery Ninth Juried Show. He was also awarded an honorable mention at the 2023 Tinicum Arts Festival. Jean Underwood, welcome to Art Talk.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. Share your questions with Jean in the Q&A. And now let's take a look at some art, Jen. All right, we'll be taking some look at some art in a moment. And we'll just edit later. There we go. Okay, this is our friend Jean.
Hi, everyone. I'm very honored to be here. So lately, I've been making a series of paintings that include bubble wrap. I don't think in series initially, but I made this first painting accidentally, and I think most of my paintings come about that way. Someone had bought a painting from me in my studio, and they wanted to take it to the framer, and so I wrapped it in bubble wrap and put some tape on it, and I laid it on the table. And when I looked at it on the table, I thought, oh, I should make a painting of that. Now, it wasn't a painting of garden shears. I decided to make that the subject because I thought it would be an interesting contrast to the paper bubble wrap, which is meant to protect things, and that's a threat. I think my favorite comment about this painting, when it was hanging in an exhibition at Phillips Mill last year, a man came up to me and said, "I really liked your painting, and I thought it was innovative, and I really wanted to buy it. My wife said that if I bought it, she'd divorce me because it was so threatening." So I said I didn't want to break up any marriages, and it should just stay on the wall. Let's go to the next one.
But that's actually an homage to the fact that it was so effective.
Yeah, I took it as a compliment. Uh, so another bubble wrap painting, and the pun on double bubble, the bubble wrap and the bubble gum. Double bubble was a forbidden substance pretty much for me when I was a kid. Let's go to the next one. So this is a much larger version of that painting. It's about 30 by 30. The other one was 12 by 12. I've always painted fairly small, like 16 by 20 or smaller. I like with smaller paintings that the viewer must lean in a bit and become part of the painting. And I think that has something to do with what I'm trying to do in general, which is ask the viewer to look closely. Like in my paintings, you'll notice there's rarely a lot of background. I close up on things. probably comes out of my advertising background a little bit, where you have a very short time with a viewer and you have to have something maximum impact to grab their attention. So I think that's played a role in how I compose. Let's go to the next one.
Jean, before we go to the next one, let's talk a little bit about how you're doing this, because I think, one of the things, besides the interesting subject matter, that's intriguing about this painting is how you're communicating that bubble wrap. That seems like technically challenging.
I'm still at the point as a journeyman painter where I find everything technically challenging. Um, you know, I guess that's partly what attracts me to subjects is, can I do it? And there are a lot of panels stacked up against the wall behind me that show there are things I cannot do. So, when you're painting, I'm interested in transparent and translucent subjects, especially. And I think that's because, we're always looking through something at the world. We're always looking through our eyes. There's this, jelly in our head, and the retina is perceiving things through that. And transparent things, it comes from the Latin word, I think, meaning to actually come through. So when you're painting something that is transparent, you're actually seeing the thing behind it. So what you do is you paint the thing behind it. When you're painting something that's translucent, like the bubble wrap is, or bubble wrap is actually both things, translucent and transparent. When you're painting something that's translucent, the light is coming through, but the background is shaded differently because it scatters the light differently. So you need to keep looking at it and find the color of the bubble wrap, just like you find the color of everything when you're painting. And that's what you do.
All right. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. So this was an attempt to, I liked the idea of protection and threat with the bubble wrap. And I've always had a thing for scissors. I think they're one of the most fascinating human inventions. They're an extension of the hand. And, the Romans invented it. And the whole idea that with one hand you can have this motion that a knife wouldn't deliver, I think is fascinating. So this was one of a pair of paintings that I did with Fiskars scissors with their famous orange handles. And this time, what I was doing was generally what I do, like in protection and thread, is I painted the garden secateurs in the background, let it dry, and then I painted the bubble wrap over it. With this one, I attempted to paint the bubble wrap and the scissors at the same time, and read everything as color. So that's why it looks different.
And you have here some distortion. So you've got the seen through the transparent, translucent bubble wrap, which in this case is tinted, but you also have the deflection of the blades.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's interesting to me is how we perceive things. What you see and what you don't see.
Okay. We do have a question and keep those coming. Let's take a pause and address it. Jen, can you help us with
Yep.
that?
Yep. Sorry. William said, love the double bubble. Is this a throwback to the 60s? Second, love the bubble wrap.
Uh, I don't know if the viewer means pop art. I think pop art was largely about, let's show what our society values, and those were commercial things. Um, I certainly was affected by pop art growing up, and I loved it, still do. So I'm sure that does influence me.
I think that's a great question. Thanks for sharing that. And it seems like you're taking the pop art a little bit farther, where those were things that were created to be looked at and grab our attention. You're actually going towards things that are serviceable and really not at all generally meant for aesthetic value, if I may say so,
Right.
um, or or that's the after effect. And so that's a pretty insightful question. Um, why these quotidian, these really a lot of these things are disposable. Even the scissors are, they're not the old scissors of the heavyweight metal. They're kind of plasticized scissors.
Right. Right. You know, we'll talk about early still lifes in a moment, but I live in the 21st century, even though I live in an 18th century house, and I don't know, very dedicated to the idea that we should portray life now. I mean, I love, the traditional still lifes, a bowl of fruit on the table, vases of flowers by the window, and the evocation of beauty. But we live in an LED lighted world. Just about everything we touch is man-made. And so I'm very much wanting to show it. I mean, sometimes it's beautiful. I think bubble wrap, what a brilliant invention. And if you've ever watched a YouTube video of how it's made, as I now reveal I have,
I
uh,
have not,
well, you
but I
must.
might
You
now.
must. It's unbelievable how it's made. How someone ever figured out the machine that makes bubble wrap will blow your mind. What a job it does. I mean, it's fantastic in its ability to protect things when you're shipping them or moving. But it gets used once and then it's wasted so often. It's really a societal problem.
All right. We have
Going.
another question, which I think we should get to while we're in this section of paintings. I know Jen will help us with that.
Sure. Hello, Bob. What is the role of the push pins and the tape in the narrative?
I'm a boy who grew up in love with the stationery store. And as a kid, I mean, anything that I thought was an adult thing, like a wristwatch, a stapler, scissors, or whatever, I wanted one of those. And I like push pins. I think they're a brilliant invention. I like the I love illusion and to a certain extent surrealism. So these are just props in a drama, I would say. They have special meaning for me because I love stationary stuff.
Well, I think we all do. Stationary stuff is special. All right, let's look at a few more paintings. We've got the questions coming in. We will get to them all. Keep them coming.
Okay. This is another scissors painting that I did in a different way, using glazes just to experiment a little bit with technique. Let's skip the next one and go to number 7. Yeah, let's go to the number 7. So this is one, it's not the best photograph of it, unfortunately, but that's my fault. Uh, so again, about illusion, when I was painting Protection and Threat, the one with the garden secateurs, it was difficult. My eyes would get tired. And at one point I stopped, I went to the supermarket, I was crossing the parking lot, and a piece of blue bubble wrap blew up onto my leg. And I picked it up and I thought, okay, this is just too coincidental. So I came home and I push pinned it to my board and thought about it a little bit and decided I wanted to show something through it and kind of paint the edges of it. And I decided to make a collage. Um, I grew up, through the AIDS crisis, and Rock Hudson was a problematic figure for me because he wouldn't acknowledge his condition and his sexuality, and he could have helped so many people. So, not to blame him exactly, but I think it's always been a bother for me. So, I collect stuff, and I had a plumb bob, and a plumb bob is this metal thing at the bottom, and that's used in building, and you hang it from a height, and you can tell whether something is straight or plumb uh, by how it hangs. And so it just came together for me, the idea of like Rock Hudson. He was neither straight nor true. The plumb bob isn't straight here. So that's what that one's about.
We do have an inquiry over whether this hot guy is available.
Long dead.
Well, what about the painting? Okay. All right. Well, let's go back to the artwork.
Look at the next one. I call this one unwrapping. After I'd been making the paintings of bubble wrap, I thought, oh, I should make bubble wrap the actual subject. It is a still life. And so I put something in the bubble wrap and then I let it unwrap itself and decided to paint that. And one of the things I'm trying to learn about painting is mixing colors accurately. And this was all about, there really wasn't any white. Everything had a little tinge of something in it. So that was really a technical challenge that I enjoyed pursuing in this one.
I have to say, I like this one a lot. I'm a simple girl. I like simple subject matter, and there's just something, maybe a little organic about this.
Hmm.
Jellyfish-ish.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Okay.
Birds. Yeah.
Interesting.
Let's look at the next one. So this is another series that I did kind of accidentally. I found some marbles that I had had when I was a child, and I was thinking about them as they're a game of randomness. Put them you collect them together, and then you pluck your thumb at them and scatter them, and then you have to play them where they lay. And I think that's what life is in
All right.
short. So I began to play with the reflections and everything. That's what this one's about.
So here we've got a different material where you're working with the translucence, transparent, and adding in that reflection.
Yeah, yeah.
You also have a really interesting perspective going on this one with that giant marble up front. Uh,
Again, I'm trying to make the viewer get into the painting. I think there's not a lot around it. It's kind of really guiding your eyes toward it.
is that again that training as a ad
Yeah, I
man?
think so. I think so. Keep
Okay.
your eye on the money.
Right. All right, let's work in some of these questions. We've got a bunch piling up. Jen?
Okay. Rick says, hi, Jean and Laura. Jean, Larry and I are so impressed with your work. Are you self-taught? And if not, where or with whom did you study?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I didn't begin painting until 7 years ago when I retired. It's actually 7 years to the day that I took my first art painting lesson. I, when I retired, I had in mind 4 or 5 painters that I had been following locally, and I contacted them and asked them if they took beginning students. And long story short, I wound up with a woman named Matrice Roche, who happened to live very near me. Matrice has since died, but I had a year of intensive private lessons with her. And then during the pandemic, we tried Zooming. She hated it. So she said to me, okay, just make your paintings every week. And then on Tuesdays, instead of coming to class, send me some JPEGs. I'll get on the phone with you. So then she would coach me, and I'd send her 2 or 3 little paintings that I had done during the week. And then she would coach me on things and watch out for this and don't do this and, work better at this. And during the pandemic, especially that lockdown first 6 months, I mean, I would wake up in the morning, I'd paint, I'd go downstairs and make lunch for us, come back upstairs and paint, take a walk. even paint at night sometimes. I was just obsessed with it. So that's me.
I mean, that's a pretty quick learning curve, 7 years, you're winning awards. You're
I've been taking
painting
other classes as well.
translucence, transparent, glass on ceramic with reflections. You got a lot going on there, Jean.
I mean, it interests me. I mean, if it didn't interest me, I wouldn't spend the time on it.
And you're working every day, right?
Virtually, I mean, I want to paint. I wake up wanting to paint.
That's fantastic. Okay, Jem, what question next?
Okay, Jean. Dave wants to know who are some of the painters who have influenced you?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, there are a lot of painters I love, like a personal favorites include Vuillard and Bonnard, the post-impressionists, but I don't paint like either of them. I wouldn't even know how to. Um, I would say I am very influenced by the Peale family of Philadelphia, Raphael, Rembrandt Peale, especially, who did still lifes, much against their father's wishes, who wanted them to paint commissioned portraits that made a lot more money, and they did that.
Mhm.
But they had this passion for still life and did some very witty ones. So that really appealed to me. Magritte is an influence. I guess the surrealism and the illusion. Um, Saul Steinberg, very much so. The idea of the things around us, like he made a lot of pencil drawings and paintings of the objects on his desk, drawing materials that he had, and so on. I'd say those were some of the major ones.
All right. Let's move forward with some more artwork. We have to always keep looking at the artwork. And it's coming.
Yeah, so we've talked about this one. Let's move on.
There was a question if the marbles are on a glass plate.
Yes, that's what they're on. Uh, it was inevitable, right? I had to put a marble in bubble wrap. And this was a sort of fast study to think about the concept, but I think it's kind of funny that I couldn't help doing it.
Right.
Let's go on. The title of this painting is Time and Chance, but I refer to it as the painting nobody likes. I've entered this in 4 juried shows and never gotten in with it. It's actually a very favorite painting of mine, and this gets back to, I hope we'll talk about early still lifes next, because this definitely is my version of a vanitas painting. So in the 17th and 16th centuries, the Dutch still life painters were making still lifes of objects that represented for them the transience of life. And they're called vanitas paintings because of the biblical uh, line, vanity, vanity, all is vanity. And in this painting, we have a daffodil, life itself, early spring, and then a fossil of a fern representing the passage of time and how things, ossify. Some marbles, again, another game of chance. And behind them, and this will reveal when the painting was made, a COVID mask, which is also about chance, who got the virus and who didn't get the virus. So this is my way of updating a long tradition.
So I really appreciate, Jean, that you share that you feel like this one is one of the lesser popular pieces that you've had. What do you think that's about?
I don't think meaning is necessarily a popular aspect of painting now. I think a lot of people are completely satisfied with color sensation, uh, special effects like interesting juxtapositions, A lot of painting and conceptual installation art right now is about the overwhelmingness of our world, the amount of stimulation we have, all the media stuff, politics, environmental stuff, and so on. So a painting like this, it takes a few minutes to unravel why in the world is he putting these things together on a plate.
But one of my questions for you is about your titles. You have a lot of meaning in your titles. Even though this painting has not been your most popular painting, you know, um, it's your favorite and you're willing to share it and willing to share that it hasn't been as popular. The some of your titles are undercut, or I had a list of them here, but you know, your paintings are a lot about meaning, and yet, and they're popular generally. What do you think?
Uh,
I mean, I'm not meaning to
yeah,
argue with you. I
no,
just
no,
think
no,
it's
no.
interesting.
I don't think it that way. They are and they aren't. I mean, they're all about ideas, and some people like a painting that's just pretty, and calming to look at. Um, and I'm a person who's interested in ideas, and I'm always thinking and overthinking. So that's how I paint the way I paint.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. What's next, Jen?
Oh, yes, Ziplocs. Again, a brilliant invention, and you throw them away by the barrel full. And I guess this is just one of those things like it was in the kitchen. I saw it that morning and thought, yeah, there's a painting. No, like the color, it really appealed to me, and thinking about like how do I represent the way the color of the red onion bleeds into some of the white areas, and then the plastic bag was sitting there, and again there were some parts that were translucent, some parts that were reflective, some parts that were transparent. It's just like a feast for me.
So you brought it into your studio, put it on a pedestal, and started painting it.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Remember when I was saying when I was a little boy, like adult things, a wristwatch. Oh my God, I pestered my parents for a wristwatch. And when they gave me a little Timex in third grade, I wore that Timex until the Timex stopped ticking, which that's a long time if you remember the commercial.
Right.
Uh, and the I would say, especially because I've always been a time head, and it's like I'm very much about watching time and making the most of time. And um, the I had a dad who would say to us, "If you're not early, you're late." That still is in my head. Uh, so there's a German word that I think of that really is part of my motivation. It's one of those compound words that they have in their language that are so interesting. It's Torschlusspanik. So it's three words that are hammered together. Tor meaning door, Schluss meaning to close or some version of close, and panic, fear or panic. And it's a word meant to describe the sensation that the door is going to close before you get to say what you want to say. So I definitely feel, having started later in life, that I want to get out what I want to get out while I can get it out. So this is definitely all about my thing about keeping time.
I like your version more than FOMO, fear of missing out,
Ah, yeah.
but a common sentiment in these times.
Uh, These actually aren't my pencils. We did use our pencils until they were pretty small when I was a boy, but I saw a photograph of some pencils on Instagram that an artist had used to make a graphite drawing, and I just thought it was amazing how they looked. Just they had so much character and told so much of a story, and decided to paint them in their kneaded eraser. So it's a little painting, just 8 by 8. That's one thing with looking at JPEGs is you don't really have any sense of scale. And it's another example of me trying to get the viewer to lean their head in and look closely at something.
I mean, I also just love these pencils that have been hand whittled, as opposed to putting them into
Sharpener, yeah.
yeah, they're just so cool.
Human story there. Yeah,
Right. That's
yeah.
right.
And so one thing led to another. So I made a giant one. This one's about 20 inches tall. And, again, I'm always trying to learn about painting. Making a long paint or tall painting, a big painting, is different from making a small one. It requires bigger brushes and you have more like the transitions of color are larger, so you really have to be paying attention to them more. You can't fudge anything. So I'm starting to experiment with larger paintings.
That's great. And here's your a pun, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the questions are mounting in the chat, in the Q&A rather.
Okay.
So let's take a few of those.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to start from the beginning of them. From Philip wants to know, Jean, have you ever considered joining your medieval scholarship to your art and paint objects from that period?
Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting. Thank you, Philip. Um, I I was really obsessed with the Middle Ages in school and went on to get a graduate degree in medieval studies. And I loved calligraphy, manuscripts, and illumination, and I did a lot of that, and I still love it. But I definitely am all about life today, so I would say I probably wouldn't turn to that subject matter.
Maybe this is a good time, Jean, to talk about, I have the answer sheet, everyone, no surprise. Your, where you're coming from with the still lifes, because that's such an interesting perspective. And that does uh, harken back to your considerable scholarship.
Okay, can we go to those 3 slides that I gave you that are the 17th century ones? I think they're at the end. Right. So this is a painting from the 17th century by Jan van Kessel, and you know, weird, right? Skull and flowers, but you very quickly think about the transience of life, and he's got an hourglass. That orange thing is maybe a little difficult to decipher here, but that's that. And there's a bubble, what could be more ephemeral than soap bubbles going up the right-hand side of the painting. Moths, they live very short lives. They ruin your fabulous wool coat that you just spent 100 guilders on. Uh, it's this obsession with meaning. It's previous to this time. When you think about Renaissance paintings, they're Madonnas, martyred saints, Jesus, and then aristocrats, portraits of aristocrats. And I don't know whether people realize that at that time, let's say during the life of Henry VIII, portraits were the tinder of their time. So after Jane Seymour died and he wanted another wife and they were pressing him to marry, his ministers sent him a portrait of Anne of Cleves. And he saw the portrait, he thought she was a babe. He had her come over to London, and after swiping right on the portrait, here this woman shows up who's very plain faced, and he's very disappointed, but he's getting pressure from his ministers and he marries her. So still lifes are fascinating turn of events where previously you always needed a patron for a portrait or a saint painting or whatever. With the development of the middle class in the Netherlands, these merchants, they had money. So, yeah, they had portraits of themselves and their wives, but they also wanted other things for their homes. So now artists were getting the chance to choose the subject matter. And there was this desire for meaning and morals, but you're moving from a spiritual culture to material culture. So let's go to the next one. So this is a painting by a woman named Maria van Oosterwijk, and I chose this one because women weren't allowed to paint aristocrats and history paintings. Those were the noble things, the grand subject matter. So they were allowed to paint still life. And this one is a brilliant summation of things. Again, we have the hourglass on the right here. We've got insects that are destroying things. Flowers themselves are symbols of transient time. Um, you've got another skull, half-eaten corn, um, and it's an attempt to portray daily life, but also include a moral or meaning on top of that. And I think that has affected me as a good pursuit. Let's look at another one. This one's by Rachel Reusch. She's a painter that I think is just so fabulous, the effects that she was able to create in paint. And of course, women painters, even now, it's just now that museums are pulling them out of the storerooms and putting them on the same walls as Rembrandt. And, we're learning more about these women painters. And I think that's interesting. And, still life it was a very subversive idea. Instead of painting these noble themes, painters are telling the public, this is worth looking at. It's worth looking at a bunch of grapes. It's worth looking at turnips. It's worth looking at moths and seashells and birds' nests. These are all things that are going to fade and go away. And the glory of immortalization of a human or some saint picture or something like that. This is really a subversive idea that upends what is the appropriate subject matter for art. And artists are still asking that. So, people ask me, why do you paint bubble wrap? This is why. We need to look at everything. There's a poem that I learned in grade school by Tennyson. It's called Flower in the Crannied Wall. And it's very short, I promise. So he says, flower in the crannied wall, I pluck you out of the crannies. Little flower, I hold you here, root and all, in my hand. Little flower, if I could but understand what you are, root and all in all, I should know what God and man is. So this idea that by looking at finite things, we can experience the infinite and understand life itself. Very captivating to me. And I think that it's a thread throughout history that we've all wanted to understand more about life, why we're here, where we're going, what we can do about it.
So that's such a phenomenal context to now think about your paintings, which are bubble wrap and bubble gum and some of these, you know, items that are controversial in our modern life, at the most. and ignored, and
but
exactly, and
they're
ignored at the
part of our
least.
lives.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, I want to go back to some of your work, but we need to make sure we get in some of these questions,
No, yeah,
and they
that's great.
really are mounting.
Great.
So, which is wonderful. We thank you all for sharing these questions. Jen, what do we have up?
I'm going to kind of combine some of them. Someone had asked a question about a specific painting. I don't remember which one. Is it painted from life or put together from many sketches? And then a second follow-up was when you're doing a still life, how bound are you to accuracy with the details and elements you are seeing? Are there ground rules for still life painters in this respect?
Well, wow, those are good questions. So I will admit that sometimes I really construct things, but a lot of times, like let's say the bag with the onion is an example. And as I mentioned, the beginning one with the secateurs under the bubble wrap, I just see something and I think, oh, I want to paint that, and I jump into it. And sometimes I really plot it out, like I did with that one time and chance with the daffodil and the fossil. So it's a range. And the other question that the person asked, yeah, that it's a really hard thing for me because I love painters who are very brushy and painterly, like John Singer Sargent, who capture the feeling and appearance of something. And I think partly because I came up through advertising when illustration was still a big thing, where you are trying to represent and describe accurately the thing that you're selling. So I probably tend toward that in my own work, whether I want to or not. And I feel uh, uh, once I compose the still life and have my objects in front of me and make some kind of drawing on the panel, um, then it's all about the painting. And if I need to change the color of something or darken something or whatever, I feel like that's fine as long as the painting looks the way I want it to look. So I'm not bound to do illustration or be true to the product, let's say.
Good. And are you working from life? Are you,
Both
yeah.
life and photos. I just almost always take a photograph because, you know, when I'm trying to draw something that is 3D, that is really challenging for me. And if I make a photograph, that collapses it into two dimensions. And then I see it more as shapes. And then I'm able to go from there. And I always think that's a fascinating step when you do that because, there's reality or what we call reality in 3D. And then every single painting is abstract. I mean, when people say to me they hate abstract painting, I think, do you hate all painting? Because all painting is abstract in some way. You're taking a three-dimensional world and flattening it into two dimensions. So those marbles are not 3D, and they're an attempt to convey how does light look on a round object, but it's on 2D.
Right. Jim, what's next? Question wise.
Okay, we have a question from Pat. Love how your work creates both narrative content and technical expertise. Is that always a goal of your work to express ideas and or questions to the viewer, as well as strive to create works that exemplify artistic skills? How important do you think either or both of those things are in art?
Wow. That is really something to think about. You know, first of all, the perceptivity of that question is amazing. So as I mentioned, I jump into things generally, uh, and I don't choose things that are hard to paint because they're hard to paint. But I look at something and I think that is so cool looking. How do you represent that? Like with the bubble wrap, I mean, what color is bubble wrap? It depends on what it's leaning against, right? And so different light on it makes it look different. And that's just interesting to explore in different ways. Um, I wish I had more technical expertise, and I work at that because I think that can make a painting really fun, and it's definitely interesting to like make your eye look at something and then say, oh, the way dust appears is it's kind of a gray blue schmudge on top of something. Um, so I'm not. I love that technical. If you paint well, that can convey what you're trying to do faster and better. But that's not my goal. Definitely not my goal.
I mean,
That's
I
not an
just,
end in itself.
and I would like to point out that question, if you don't mind, Pat, comes from Pat Pernuski, and I'm not sure I'm saying it correctly,
What an
but
incredible painter.
right? I mean, her technical skills
Oh my
are,
God, off the wall.
yeah, exactly. So thank you, Pat. We appreciate that. Jen, what's next? We're working through, and we've got a little bit of time. We are gonna get back to some pictures, but we've got like 7 questions, and Jen is a master at organizing them for us efficiently. We're up to 8. Okay, what do we got, Jen?
Okay, Jean, this is another tough one. Eric said, Jean, great to see your paintings. Big picture. What is art for?
Hate you, Eric. It's for a range of things. I think art is for pleasure. Uh, it's for exploration of thoughts. It's for communication for sure. It certainly predates language, right? Those hands on cave walls. And that's fascinating, right? If I show you a picture of something, it tells you something. I mean, that's pretty cool, on the basis. So I definitely think it's about communication. And, sometimes people say to me, don't you miss having people in your art? Well, first of all, yeah, I would love to be able to paint people, and I do work at it, and I will someday. But in every still life, there are two people. There's the painter and his relationship to that thing. Why did he choose marbles? What is that all about? And, you know, why did he close up on it? Or why did he paint it from a distance? Or why did he do it the way he did it? And the other person is the viewer who's asking those questions. And those two people are definitely part of every one of my paintings. So I would say art is for communication.
Yeah. And while Jen gets the next question going, I will just say, coming from a writer background, the skill required to create those pictures is extraordinary, and I'm envious of it. And I'm also envious of, that sort of, just mental grokking, mind to mind communication that painters have that writers, I think, have to spend so much time laboriously building up. And I know we've got Robert Beck here, who is a master of both. Anyway, next question, Jen.
Okay. Linda wants to know, where are you going with your next group of paintings? Do you have an idea of what you want to do next?
Yeah, I do. But if you think I'm going to reveal that before I do it, I'm not. I want to finish a big painting that's behind me of some bubble wrap. But then I definitely have some ideas of things I want to do beyond. And while I've been painting the bubble wrap, it's been very meditative, I would say, and kind of clarified for me some things. And so I definitely have some ideas that are percolating.
All right, let's take two
Stay
quick
tuned.
questions. Okay, great. Let's
Okay.
take 2 quick questions. I think Linda's got a follow-up. That one can probably go pretty quickly. And and whatever you think, Jen. And let's get back to some paintings. We're going to get all of this in the next 9 minutes.
Okay, Terry wants to know, do you work in other media? Watercolor, gouache, ink, pastel, pencil?
I don't. I love it all. I wish I had the time to explore it, but I just feel again with the door closing somehow. I want to stick with this. I love oil, and I'll just tell you, I started out when I went to Matrice Roche's class. She said, "Bring some images that are things that you would like to paint," and I brought her all of these color field abstract paintings that were 6 feet by 5 feet, and said, I want to make these things. And she said, okay, well, we can do that, but you're going to need to learn some things about color first and about how to make color recede, how to make it come forward. And we're going to do that by traditional still life objects. But we got doing it. And by the second week, I was like all about still life. So it's just very funny. I'm obsessed with oil paint and I'm married to it, I guess. So
Yeah. And you went
maybe in the
from
next life.
big to small, real, abstract to real. Yeah. Jen, one more question and then back to pictures.
Okay, Linda wants to know, this should be a quick one. Do you take commissions?
I do not. And I'll tell you why I don't. I love painting what I want to paint. And, I am lucky enough, having had a career, that I am painting for myself first. And I definitely want to share it with other people. And when somebody buys my paintings, I am in love with them, that they want to live with one of my paintings. But I don't want to paint what other people see. I want them to make a painting.
Okay. All right, good. Let's look at some pictures and then we'll finish off the questions. Thank you, everybody, for all those wonderful questions.
Yeah, really
We
good
will,
questions.
yeah. Okay.
Another pencil painting, again, attempt to make a big painting from a small thing. Let's move forward. Another pencil. This is a little painting, just 8 by 8. I picked up this pencil and somebody had gnawed at it, and I just thought, oh my God, this is like a little movie. I just felt I knew something about this person and that it deserved to be the subject of a painting.
I totally love that, Jean. And I also am fascinated by the composition because you're breaking a bunch of rules here. Am
Yep.
I correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that just for a couple of minutes
Yeah.
briefly?
Like, first of all, again, back to the whole thing of like, what is the appropriate subject for art? Does a gnawed pencil deserve a whole painting? And so I'm kind of putting it in your face deliberately, and I'm putting it right in the middle of the canvas, which I think is what you're partly alluding to, that that's not a good compositional rule. And I'm saying, let's stare at this and think about it.
Yeah.
Somebody used this pencil. They maybe had anxiety during their, SAT exams or whatever, and are gnawing at it. And, I just feel like it tells a story all by itself.
That's right. And it's like a portrait, somebody sitting there. You can imagine somebody sitting there against that portrait background.
Right,
And
right,
here it's a pencil, and
right,
it's just really a portrait of their artifact.
right.
Yeah. Okay, Jen.
So this is a painting I made 2 years ago called Mirrored, and relates to Dutch painting, with all this stuff on the table. And how it came about was we have some wild turkeys who come and visit us all the time, and they drop their feathers. And I picked up one of their feathers, and I thought, feathers are like camouflage, they're like communication. Um, and the whole idea of, how we camouflage ourselves or present ourselves occurred to me. And I was thinking how you wear sunglasses, makes it cool. And I saw a relationship there. And the sunglasses made me think of like sunglasses can be like a mask. And so I wanted to put it all together. And I'm fascinated by what things look like in a mirror. So I was taking the photograph for this still life And I saw myself in the mirror and decided that I wanted to incorporate the whole thing. So, I think that our presentations to other people are always somehow a mask. We're always somehow, dressing up. Um, and that's what this painting is all about.
And I just an side comment, I love that sort of the sunglasses mirror the mask, and it's a time thing as well, right? Which references back to those Dutch still lifes, which were all about the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Jen.
So I have tried a few still lifes. I don't claim to be a portrait painter, but I am always thinking about stuff, and my beanie copter is always twirling. And I I was feeling. I woke up one morning. I'm still wearing my bathrobe in this painting. I woke up and I just could feel all this stuff going on in my head. And I have lots of post-it notes on my desk, reminding me about things, or here's an idea for a painting, or I must tell this person this. And I just saw them and I thought, they're really like my head, my brain on the table, all these post-it notes. So that's how it came together. And that's what I wanted to make. And I always have a lot on my mind. And sometimes it's great and sometimes it's worse. So
We all identify with this painting. And the expression on your face as well
it's
is pretty great.
overload.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
So this is a painting that I did this year, and I wanted to share it tonight because I know it's very different from everything else here in some ways, but related in some ways. So let's see. I am an Instagram scroller. I can lose a lot of time on Instagram. And I saw this painting of a young Black man wearing a green striped shirt against a green background. And I thought, this is the bomb. I love this painting. So I printed it out and I pinned it up on a piece of paper on my board with a push pin. And then the next day, I was doing a walk. I came home with a fern. I was like, oh, green, I'm putting it with him. So I put it with him. Then I was looking at it and I was thinking, oh my God, it's like so vital and alive. And then I was thinking about how ferns have the backside of ferns in this little brown circle are dotted with the golden seeds. And I was thinking about potency and sexual vitality. And so I thought the pair was sexy. And at New Year's Eve party at friends, they gave us these little twisty thing, party twister things. And you blow into it and it extends. So I thought, oh, this all goes. And I just collaged it together on the piece of paper. And I was looking at it from across the room and I thought, oh, it's like a whole thing on youth, and we put youth on an altar. And I used some rubber stamps to faintly print the word altar, ALTAR, in the top. And then I thought, I'm going to do a dialogue with age and fading and everything. And so I put a piece of paper that I had painted the coffee cup spilled. And that's an image that has a lot of pathos for me. You always feel like a loser when you knock over your coffee, right? And so it was folded in half, the paper, and I put it on next to the green one. And then I put a piece of orange frog tape across the top. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to put some aging things on it. And I had some dried leaves in the studio, and I had a photograph of a different kind of fossil with a fern on it, which I thought went with the other fern. And just, what do you call it? Intuitively, like the shape of the spilled coffee and the shape of the party thing went together. And I thought, youth we put on an altar, and what happens to us is alter, ALTER. And so I collaged that in there with the rubber stamp those rubber words in there. And so this one is just really about, you know, the dialogue of youth and age. And again, I'm always thinking about time, and sort of wanted to look at different ways of making a still life. So again, slightly surrealistic, you know, like making a collage and then painting the collage and its illusions, versus I'm painting a coffee cup on a table with grapes next to it, and saying those are the real things. I'm actually saying here are the illusions.
And there's some of the complexity of those old still lifes that we saw before, and yet it's modern, which is your
Yeah,
take.
right. That's what I'm trying to do.
So we are at time. I'm just gonna break that fourth wall, and we are going to finish these 5 questions, if that's okay with Eugene and everybody there, and then we'll do the closing. Thanks, Jen.
Okay. Anonymous wants to know, I appreciate the mask during the pandemic. Do you have other paintings that dig into that time in our life?
Yeah, I did make a few paintings. I made another painting of a mask with Hershey's Kisses because, you know, it was a time where you weren't supposed to touch people, and like the whole idea of like that's sexual connection that obviously is all about, you know, living, just seems so poignant to me. And Hershey's Kisses, what a clever idea to call a candy kiss. The Italians have a candy called baci, so obviously it's a thing we think of. And yeah, so there were a couple of paintings that were somehow about the pandemic.
Right.
Oh,
Next.
okay.
Yep.
Marty asked, I don't know which one he's referring to, but that one's everyday surroundings can blur into virtually unseen background, and that you have developed an eye to pull things out that are not simply ordinary. Do you even consider simply portraying it as found without the overlay of being a still life?
Do I uh, do I say that last part again?
Do you even consider simply portraying it as found without the overlay of being a still life?
Yes, I have made a number, if I understand it correctly, I have made a number of object paintings, as I think they're generally called, where I'm painting a coffee cup, you know, and it's supposed to look like a coffee cup, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just like, I like that coffee cup, or I like the light, the way that hit the coffee cup. Or uh, I have some of my father's tools, and I remember painting a very weathered uh, hammer that was his, and a pair of pliers, you know, and I just made them the subject of the painting. They're small paintings. And I think seeing an object that is 21st century, rendered by a traditional method of oil painting, when you could easily just snap a photograph of it with your phone camera, there's something poignant about that, that you're spending the time on it and you're kind of paying a little reverence to the object. So yeah, I do sometimes. I still do it sometimes.
Okay, we have 2 more questions and 1 comment. Terry wanted to know what enchants you more when you're creating? Color, light, subject, like in writing, plot, character, or style?
Well, starts with for me, starts with a subject, and then I am the puppet master who can throw the light on it, and it's still life. So I
You
like
like
light and how it happens, but I love being in control of that, versus like I admire people who do plein air painting. Oh my God. But not me.
okay.
Okay, one last one. I think this is a good one to close with. William Higgins said, where do you go from here? Do you want to do different mediums? Jeff and I love your art. Keep going.
Oh, that is so nice. Thank you, man. Uh, I want to keep making paintings that matter to me first. I would like to do some bigger paintings, which I don't know if I can do in the room that I paint in at home. Um, And I don't really want to work in other media right now. I do sometimes make collages and mixed media things, and I suspect that I'll do more of that. And that could lead to other media. We'll see. Stay tuned.
And we'll end it there. Jean Underwood, thank you so much for sharing your work with us and spending the evening with us.
Oh, thank you for visiting me. I really appreciate it. I followed this since you started it, and I've seen many great programs. So I'm really honored to be part of it.
And thank you to all the friends and family, the painters and Phillips Mill people, everybody who joined us in the audience. We really appreciate it. I hope you'll come back on April 29th. We're excited to have Bruce Katzif, whose name rings with resonance in our community. He was director and CEO of the Michener Art Museum for nearly a quarter of a century. He has his own photography show coming up at the Michener, and April is the Phillips Mill annual photography show, of course. So we're excited to talk with this wonderful artist and photographer and about some of his challenging images. I hope you'll join us on April 29th for that. Thank you also so much to our wonderful team, Jen McHugh, Technical Director.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jean. This was so much fun to hear.
Oh, great.
And Deanna Bocher, our content producer. We're so grateful for you. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Thank you again. Good night.
Good night.